I'm 65 and my morning coffee is not a guilty pleasure. It is one of the healthiest things I do all day. I know that sounds backwards. I thought the same thing for years. But the science that has come out in the last decade has completely reversed everything we were told about coffee. And what it actually does to your gut bacteria, your heart, and your metabolism is something most women our age have never heard. I'm Barbara Lawson, I'm 65 years old, and I want to tell you about the quiet shame I carried around my coffee habit for most of my adult life. Every morning I would make my cup, and somewhere in the back of my mind there was that voice, the one that said this was a guilty indulgence, that I was doing something slightly bad for myself, that I should probably cut back or switch to something cleaner. I had been told coffee raised blood pressure. I had been told it caused heart problems. I had read articles connecting it to cancer. I cut back to 1 cup, then felt guilty about that 1 cup. That guilt lasted for years. And then the research started to change. Not slightly, completely. What scientists now understand about coffee is so different from what I grew up believing that it genuinely felt like hearing about a different drink. And I want to share everything I have learned because if you are carrying the same quiet guilt about your morning coffee that I carried for decades, you deserve to know the truth. Before I get into it, I want to ask you something. Do you feel guilty about your coffee? Have you been cutting back or considering switching to decaf because of something you read or heard? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one this week. And if this is already surprising you, please like this video and subscribe. I make these specifically for women our age, and I don't want you to miss what's coming. Let me start with what coffee actually is, because understanding this changes everything. Coffee is the seed of a tropical fruit. When we roast it, grind it, and steep it in water, we are extracting hundreds of chemical compounds, not just caffeine. And it is those other compounds that are behind most of coffee's surprising health benefits. The first surprise is fiber. I had no idea that coffee contained fiber. When I think of fiber, I think of vegetables, whole grains, things you chew. But coffee contains soluble fiber, the kind that dissolves in water and passes into your cup. A standard filtered coffee contains around 1 to 1.5 grams of fiber. If you drink 3 cups a day, you are getting close to 1/3 of the fiber that most women in the US and UK currently consume. And fiber, as we know, feeds the gut microbiome, the trillions of bacteria that live in our intestines and regulate everything from digestion to immune function to mood. Which brings me to the second surprise. Coffee feeds specific gut bacteria. Research has shown that coffee lovers have a distinctly different gut microbiome from non-coffee drinkers. You can actually identify a coffee drinker just by looking at the profile of their gut bacteria. This is not a minor finding. The gut microbiome is one of the most important discoveries in modern health science, and the idea that something as simple and pleasurable as your morning coffee is actively nourishing it is remarkable. The compounds responsible are called polyphenols, natural defense chemicals found in plants, particularly in foods and drinks with bitter tastes and dark colors. Coffee is extraordinarily rich in polyphenols. And polyphenols are like rocket fuel for your gut bacteria. They cause the beneficial bacteria to produce compounds that have protective effects throughout the entire body. and particularly on the heart. This leads to the third and perhaps most important finding. Coffee drinkers have less heart disease than non-coffee drinkers. This is not a small study or a single piece of research. This finding has been replicated across large population studies involving hundreds of thousands of people. The evidence has now accumulated to the point where it is, in the words of researchers in this field, incontrovertible. For most of my adult life, I was told coffee was bad for the heart. The truth is the opposite. People who drink 1 to 5 cups of coffee a day show lower rates of heart disease, not higher. And there is no evidence of excess cancer risk either. In fact, the data suggests coffee drinkers have lower all-cause mortality than non-drinkers. The primary drivers behind this protection are those polyphenols and the fiber, working through the gut microbiome to produce compounds that benefit cardiovascular health. Now I want to address something that is real and important: caffeine and sleep. This is the one area where the story is more complicated. Caffeine blocks adenosine, the brain chemical that signals tiredness. That is why coffee wakes you up. But the half-life of caffeine, the time it takes for half of the caffeine to leave your system, is somewhere between 5 and 7 hours, which means a cup of coffee at 4 in the afternoon could still have significant caffeine in your system at 10 at night. And anything that disrupts sleep cancels out health benefits because sleep is the foundation of everything. For most women our age, having a cutoff around 2 or 3 in the afternoon for caffeinated coffee makes good sense. The right amount appears to be between 1 and 5 cups per day. Beyond 5 or 6 cups, the benefits seem to diminish, possibly because the excess caffeine starts to outweigh the polyphenol benefits. What about decaffeinated coffee? I had always assumed decaf was the lesser option, something you drank when you had given up on the real thing. The truth is more interesting. Decaffeination removes the caffeine, but leaves the fiber and polyphenols largely intact. Most of the health benefits of coffee, the gut bacteria effects, the heart protection, the polyphenol content, appear to be present in decaf as well. Good quality decaf, roasted fresh and brewed carefully, can be genuinely excellent. If you love coffee but find that caffeine affects your sleep or your anxiety, switching to good quality decaf in the afternoon is not a compromise. It is a smart choice that lets you keep the ritual and the health benefits without the cost to your sleep. And what about adding milk? This is the question I get asked most often. The short answer is that milk does not appear to disrupt the health benefits of coffee. The polyphenols and fiber are still there, still doing their work. Milk adds some additional calories and fat, but for most women, it is nutritionally neutral. The only consideration is if you are doing time-restricted eating. Adding significant amounts of milk to coffee does stimulate insulin and glucose pathways and can technically break a fast. If that is relevant to you, black coffee is the cleaner option. I spent decades feeling vaguely guilty about one of the most pleasurable and, as it turns out, genuinely healthy habits in my daily life. The research on coffee is now clear enough that I can say this without hesitation. For most women our age, a moderate amount of good coffee every day is not something to feel guilty about. It is something to feel good about. The fiber feeds your gut. The polyphenols protect your heart. The ritual nourishes something harder to measure, but no less real: Drink your coffee. Just stop apologizing for it. If this video helped you make peace with your morning cup, please subscribe for more strategies that actually work for women our age. I'm Barbara Lawson. Thanks for watching.